Yes. No, there's on the comics YouTube channel that I watch. They've started doing like it's called Cartoonist Kayfabe, and like they started doing that now like public record like court cases, like reading testimonies and stuff from various like comics related court cases. And the one they're doing right now is Stan Lee's testimony during the Kirby Estate versus Marvel trial from like 2010. And oh man, the second episode is Stan regurgitating the fucking how I created these superheroes stories that he's been saying for like 40 years. And then like it's just like you there's like it's the greatest hits where it's like there's lines you've heard him say a million times and you're just like, oh, he's dusting that one off again. And they're all just, you know, very Stan-centric stories where it's just like, well, then I gave it to the artist and I told them to do this. And I was just like, shut up, Stan. You're fucking... No. And then, like, anytime they ask him something that's not part of the story, he just doesn't... It's not part of what he's, you know, rehearsed over the years, so he has trouble answering anything off topic. And it's just like, ugh! Just makes me angry.
Makes you bark, it sounds.
It does, dude. I'm just sitting here, watching it. I'm just like, yep. One of the classics is he tells they ask him about the creation of the X Men, and he's like talks about how he's like, well, I went into Martin Goodman and, you know, was supposed to pitch it to him, and I told him I wanted to call it the Mutants, and he's like, oh no, that's a terrible title. Nobody knows what mutants are. So I went back and sitting there and I was thinking Professor X, Xavier, they got extra powers, the X Men, and I went and told him that, and he was like, oh, that's great, that's a great title. And as I was leaving, I was thinking to myself, no one knows what mutants are, then no one's gonna know what an X-Man is. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Heard this at least 5 or 6 times. You turd. It's just because obviously he's asked that question a million times, right?
Yeah.
So he's got these like pre-prepared things that, like, even at that point in 2010, like, we knew all these factual inaccuracies in it, but it's just like, especially with Spider-Man, and he's still pumping that same old shit. I'm just like, God damn it, dude. Fucking Stan.
Excelsior.
What did you want to talk about, Wilson? Okay.
Well,
the comics history of the Belch, yes.
I just I have recently done. I've watched videos about comic storylines, and I watched one on House of Powers of X and that whole shebang-a-lang.
Yep.
And Swords of 10 and all this.
Yep.
And
the new status quo of the X-Men, yeah. I'm all in there, my dude.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Dude.
Crafted by granddaddy fucking Jonathan Hickman, who, like, they bring that dude in to do stuff at Marvel because he's like a world crafter. What he does, he did fucking Fantastic Four for a while, and that was ridiculous.
Yep.
He did Avengers and New Avengers, where like
the multiverse fucking ended.
Yeah, and like he had like, that's where the Black Order, Thanos' Black Order comes from. It's from his run, and then and that led to Secret Wars, which was him being like, hey, Marvel, I'm destroying everything, we can rebuild whatever, and then you now have carte blanche to do new interesting things with your characters. And then like he left, and then they didn't do shit with it, and everything was back to status quo again. And then comes back, and now they're like, X-Men, do something with this. We've ignored it for 10 years because fucking Ike Perlmutter told us to, because of fucking movie rights and what was once our most popular thing, and now nobody really reads it, and fucking do something. And he was like, all right, and slapped his big old universe building dick down on the table and was just like, here we go. It was tight. But also, like most things Marvel, it's led to some tomfuckery, but like some meddling and whatever. Like he had like a 3-act structure for it, and like the writers that he had doing stuff were having so much fun in the first act that they just ended up extending it for a long time, and like now he's pieced out from X-Men. Not like angrily, but he's like kind of done what he can and just kind of leaving them with his kind of guideline of what he had planned. And then like I think they're just now entering into what would have been his Act 2. But he just finished his last X book, which was Inferno. And that teeing them up for this next part. Now he's off to do something else for Marvel that they haven't announced yet. So
there's so much of it that's everything I feel like I've ever wanted to see for the X-Men.
It is, and it's really weird because like especially like House and Powers, you get this weird kind of culty vibe, you know, like it doesn't feel real. Like for a while when everyone's trying to figure out this whole thing, like is this some pocket dimension? Is this some weird? Like, because they're not acting like they normally do. Xavier's really weird. Is it not him behind this helmet? Because he's doing shit that you wouldn't think Xavier would do.
But if you do just go forward with the idea that it is Xavier the whole time,
and it is, as far as
I mean, it is. But like, if you go through that story just blindly, completely believing that it is Xavier. Man, this story is amazing. Are you familiar with this at all, Tyler?
Nope.
All right, Tyler. So
really simply, the X-Men, like a long time ago in God, what was it? When the first
giant size X-Men #1.
Giant size X-Men.
You're talking about Krakoa?
This secondary group of X-Men that contained most of the like familiar ones that you would call the X-Men these days. Went on a mission to save the original team of X-Men who were stranded on this island called Krakoa, right?
Okay.
Yep.
That was, comics tomfuckery. And all these decades later, they basically start writing this story.
Wait. Krakoa is a mutant island. That's important. It's living.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing to this.
I was going to incorporate it.
Okay, cool.
Like, give him some space, Bradshaw.
All these decades later, they create this story where they've developed Krakoa a little bit more, and it's a mutant island. Like they used to be like, it used to be like
it was a mutant island then. It was a mutant island then. But they didn't have to fight Krakoa.
Yeah, but they have changed it a little bit. Where where they've streamlined things, and they're like it's a mutant island, so it technically is like alive and all this stuff, and the X-Men are basically like, you know what, this isn't working. Like everything that we've ever tried, like if we just talk to the humans, if we really try and be their friends and we keep trying and trying and trying, they'll eventually accept us. No, Professor Xavier and the rest of the X-Men are basically like, you know what, they're not going to accept us. We've been trying this for years and look where it's gotten us. Like all these horrible adventures and all these people that have died, it's not really working out. So we're going to move to Krakoa and we're basically going to create our own sovereign nation and have our own rules. And it gets crazy, all the things that happen. Like,
so
I'm watching a companion video that you guys can't see. I should probably stream it, but I'm watching just a video that whatever you just said, I just clicked on the first video and it's just showing a bunch of random stuff.
One thing that makes this like so like what is it's out of nowhere. There is no setup of it. There's a volume of Uncanny X-Men that happens for a couple months beforehand that is just like regular shit. X-Man comes and like fucks around a little bit, and then all of a sudden the next time we see the X-Men, boom, Krakoa's formed, everybody's there. It's really weird. Like everybody's acting strange. It's not explained, it's just here, and it starts unwinding as you go across these two weekly or bi-weekly titles, House of X and Powers of 10.
There's really cool stuff where like Magneto has completely, like Xavier basically goes to Magneto and is like, you know what, you were kind of right, and you and I need to work together. There's this whole crazy backstory with, are you familiar with Moira Mctaggart? Tyler?
Nope.
Well, she basically has been like a companion to the X-Men for a long time. She's a geneticist, basically.
Yes.
And she...
An ally of the mutants.
Yeah, like for a long time, she has been somebody who's very, very close with Charles Xavier. She's just been helping him out and been their friend.
Okay.
And part of this story is it's revealed that all this time she has been a mutant, and her mutant power is that she gets reborn over and over and over again. She basically just gets, like, she doesn't live the same timeline. She just keeps getting reborn throughout time. And so, like, she keeps, once they start telling the story, she, like, is like, oh shit, in every single timeline, humans and mutants go to war, and one kills the other, or they each kill each other, or things completely...
Or robots happen.
Yeah, or like... or humanity just becomes robots.
Does she have like access to these previous lifetimes?
Yeah, she remembers her whole life.
So she lives lifetime after lifetime trying to gain more information, so that at one point she's like, okay, I know that all of these things are very, very likely to happen. Let me approach Charles Xavier and basically be like, look, you may not, hi, I'm Moira Mctaggart, you're Charles Xavier, you're going to want to have a conversation with me, trust me. And it successfully works. They both go to Magneto, have the same conversation, and they're like, whoa, okay, you just laid a lot of information on me. I guess, yeah, let's all team up and try something new. And they explain how Krakoa came to be. But they basically are like, every single mutant on the planet Earth is now like a citizen of Krakoa. You can come here and you will be completely safe. No human...
Good guy, bad guy, anything.
Yeah, doesn't matter who you are. If you are a mutant, you can come here and you can live peacefully away from any kind of strife. Like
but
humans...
there are rules.
Yeah, but...
There are rules.
But they're like, here's why we want to be a sovereign nation. Because we can actually... Yes, we are declaring, like, humans, you can't come here. You can't have what's on... Like, mutants are now like they have diplomatic immunity. If you're born as a mutant from now on, you can choose at any time to become a citizen of Krakoa and come here, and you'll get full rights of whatever. And the reason they're able to hold this power is because they have these plants that grow on Krakoa that they develop into medicine, into like 3 different medicines. One, if you take it, it extends human life by 5 years. The other one cures any disease of the mind. And then the third one, I forget what that one does. Shit. But they basically are like, look, you have cancer?
They're bribing. They're bribing, essentially. They're bribing their way into becoming a nation. That's part of the fuckery that makes you like, okay, this isn't all above board. Like, because they hold it above these countries and be like, hey, like,
you have to recognize us as a sovereign nation, or you won't get this. You won't be able to get this medicine. If you accept us as a sovereign nation, we will allow you to purchase it as much as you want. We're not going to give it to you because we've tried helping you enough, and you guys have fucking spit in our face every time.
But these are things that are factual, and they've done tests on it. Like, hey, give us a sample to see if you're telling the truth.
100%. It 100% is what they're claiming. Like, it will extend human life by 5 years if you take it. It will, if you have any sort of mental issue at all, or like, I think they even say like, yeah, one is any mental issues, and the other one is all diseases. So any disease, literally any disease, you can cure now, as long as your government accepts Krakoa. And so, like, Apocalypse fucking joins them and is like, hey, I want to be cool. And Moira Mctaggart, like, they all fill him in, and he's like, cool, so we're working on this plan. They create, like, a council of the 10, like, mutants that are basically going to run Krakoa. It's so fucking cool, dude. Like,
I'm getting a lot of deja vu from when we were talking, or Broad Show was divulging deep into this, because I remember snippets of what you were talking about, Wilson, when we had like conversations at your apartment a while back, where he talked about Krakoa, and I was like, yeah, that's familiar, like these plants and things like that. Yeah, that's
so
the name.
One of the
sounds
cool
familiar.
things too is there's a couple things. The one is the island is heavily guarded. They have these gates, these transport gates that are made of these plants, and the only way you can go through them is if you're a mutant. If you try to go through as a human, it won't work.
And if Krakoa lets you, because it's like a living island.
So like if they have diplomats there for certain things, then they're allowed in, but otherwise only mutants can go there. A couple of the rules, the two main rules, are make more mutants and kill no human. So that's the thing for the bad guys specifically. So if you kill a human, you get fucked. So like Sabretooth is the first one to fuck up.
Yeah.
He kills a human. So what happens is basically Krakoa opens up and swallows you.
He's just
and you are trapped in the bowels
prison forever.
Krakoa. And why that? The other thing that is the key to a lot of this too is secretly the mutants have figured out the key to resurrection. So basically,
it's really cool how you find that out too, because like they're on the main X-Men, you would say, quote unquote, like Wolverine, Cyclops, Storm, Jean, Nightcrawler, like everybody that you would count as the main X-Men are on this mission in space, and they're on this like space station going to take down this super advanced program to like basically create Sentinels that will just wipe out the whole
This all
world.
sounds familiar. Yep, we've talked about this.
Yeah, and all the X-Men just die, straight up die, and then they're reborn and they explain it. It's so cool. Oh man, like
so like the core concept there is they have a group of mutants called the Five, and they each have a very specific role.
Yeah, I remember all this now. It's coming back to me.
And like they are able to clone the body. They Cerebro maintains like up-to-date uploads of the mutants' minds, and through various other mutants are able to replicate powers, instill those powers back into the bodies, resurrect them, bring them back to life as they were, essentially, with memories up to the moment they died. So like they have unlocked the key to being around. See, but then it gets into the thing of like, oh, so this really isn't Cyclops anymore. You know what I mean? Like the Cyclops is dead. He's dead. This is just a copy, a clone, essentially. But that's where it starts getting weird. It's him, but it's not him, right? It's not the same. It's him in the sense that yes, it's the body is genetically identical, and his memories are retained up to the moment that the real Cyclops died. But it's a completely quote unquote new person, right?
But what's the difference?
What's the difference is that it's not like that same person continued living. It's a copy of that person that's now living.
Yeah, but they have the same personality, memories, everything of the previous person. It's just they happen to die.
But that's just like if that happened to you, right? You would still be dead. It wouldn't be you again.
We're getting into some philosophy though. That's philosophy
because
right
it's
there.
not you. It's not you continuing on living. It's a copy of you that's living now.
But I still have all of my same memories.
It's not like you. No, it's not you. It's a clone of you.
But my clone doesn't remember.
If you got, but it's not like you went to sleep and all of a sudden are awake again. It's just a whole.
I think we'll
different...
just have to agree to disagree on it.
There's so much semantics though built into that question. Like that's a like, meaning of life kind of thing. Like your soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Does your soul continue to be you, or is it just a copy of you?
I think we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Because I don't. To me, like. Because it's not you anymore. Cool. It's a clone of you.
That's totally cool.
But do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely, I do.
But because you're right in the sense that it is the same person with the same memories and the same whatever. It's just it's as much as that is that person, it's not that person.
Who knows?
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love it.
Now, if they were able to like if the soul was a thing in the Marvel universe, and they were able to catch that and put it into that body.
Are you saying Marvel has no soul?
I'm just saying if the concept of a soul was a real thing, then yes. But
I've always been like, out of Marvel, the X-Men have always been like one of my stronger interests. Yeah. So it's refreshing to see like, yes, some of their methodology and the way they're going about it may have changed, but they've accomplished what they've been trying to do all these years, which is to have like a safe, successful mutant population.
But in the end, what you learn is it is futile, because no matter what happens, as Moira's learned, they're always going to lose. And that's a secret that they keep from the rest of the X-Men. Only Moira, Magneto, and Xavier know this, that no matter what happens, they're always going to lose. But they are just trying to do what they can to try and prolong their existence, and nobody else, until Inferno. Once Inferno happens, they clue Emma Frost in on it, and she is pissed that they have kept this from her and the others, and now everybody knows.
Yeah.
And so,
but the whole point of the story is like to see this effort and to see them trying something different, and whether it's doomed or not, it's just refreshing to see it. You hope, and like you hope that the point of the comic is like, oh, they do find a way to do something at least different, not end in like annihilation. One of the best
issues in that run was like, I think it's either issue 4 or issue 7, I don't remember, but there's an issue where Xavier and Magneto and maybe Apocalypse go to meet with a bunch of world leaders secretly.
Yes.
And it's just them sitting, talking. While there is some action. Yeah. There is some action where Gorgon and Cyclops try to like are stopping some like assassins or some shit. But it's just them sitting, talking. It's just world politics, and it's like the most interesting shit ever. There's an interesting moment.
Hold on, give me 1 second. Hold that thought. Go ahead.
All right. So there's an interesting piece that develops like a little later on, where something emerges called the Crucible, which is basically like, because Wanda, Scarlet Witch, at one point, loses her mind, and she says no more mutants, and like 2/3 or whatever of the mutant population all of a sudden lose their powers. So there's a thing called the Crucible where former mutants come back and they basically fight like gladiator style, and then like, is that what it is? Or do they just get killed? I don't remember. They either fight or they just like sacrifice themselves to get killed and then resurrected and given their powers back, essentially. And it's like, it's really dark, and like Nightcrawler witnesses this, and he kind of has an issue with it, and him and Cyclops have this whole conversation about it, about how uneasy he is with it. And basically, all of this is challenging because he's a Catholic, right? Traditionally, like a pretty staunch Catholic, and like challenging his ideas of faith and religion and all this stuff. And it basically ends with him having this idea of like starting a mutant religion, essentially.
Yeah,
and like
it's a good thing to go down.
And it's like and it was interesting to see this because
is this the culty aspect you're talking about?
Well, it already has that kind of culty aspect because everybody is acting kind of weird and like out of character, and like
they're treating Magneto like a savior, like a messiah, like literally like reaching out to touch him, and like he flies in and just hits the ground, and everybody is just swarming around him and like, oh, were you successful? Thank God you're here. Like Magneto's the one who's going to lead us into prosperity. It's crazy.
Okay.
And and Xavier's the figurehead, and it's just really weird. And like
it's ruthless. It's fucking great.
And like so it's so then there's this idea then Nightcrawler, I don't think I've read the series. There's a mini series called Way of X where he kind of leans into that. I have it, I just haven't read it. But like, because I'm eternally behind on everything. But it basically it leads to a point where there's just this kind of unending I mean, obviously the bad guys are still kind of plotting and whatever, but a lot of them are just truly faithful completely to Xavier and the cause. Now things are starting to get a little, like Wolverine starts being like, and like the Cyclops gets a little dowdy. Like it gets to a point where, because they are like an island nation now, any like team, like X-Men team, will be seen as like an official representative of Krakoa, you know? So they can't have like a public facing team. But essentially Cyclops, especially since like a lot of like they hold positions on the council and whatnot. So essentially like Cyclops, I don't remember if he was on the council or not, but like Jean and like whatever, the people who were on the council give up their council spots and basically become like an X-Men team because Cyclops feels that they're not doing completely what they should be doing. Like they should be out saving the world like they've always have been, but like they can't do that with the way things are currently going about. So they kind of have to not sever ties with the island, but they have to sever ties with the official like government aspect of it. So they're out there. And the other thing is the world does not know about the resurrections, like the resurrection protocol. The world has no idea, so like they have to hide it, and so like and they try, if they die, they try not to have it be like a public thing. Like recently Cyclops pretty publicly died, so, and since he was the leader of this team of X-Men, he can't continue like going out normally, so then they like basically craft this new identity that he has with like an image inducer type situation called Captain Krakoa, and that's the only way he can go out in public and do things is as this completely different person. Because if he were to go out as himself, it would be like, we just saw you pretty publicly die, how'd you come back? You know what I mean? Like every other, you know, like resurrection of heroes has a pretty, you know, candid reason or like how it happened, why it happened, you know, like.
And these are resurrections, like pure resurrections, not clones?
No, these are all clones. This is what we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
The you die, everything gets, you know, your body gets cloned, your memories are saved in an upload on Cerebro. Mm-hmm. There's mutants that can clone your powers, whatever, and then put back in. So these are the clones that come back, right? Okay. But like, he can't publicly be out there because it's just like, hey, you just died, how are you back again? You know what I mean? So that's a big secret that they've kept from the world, and that's going to obviously be an issue at some point. Another thing that they now with Inferno, there's some rules to resurrections. They, for some reason, don't want to resurrect clones. I don't know if it's a they don't want to muddle up the process because they're genetically identical. I don't know exactly why, but like, you know, if it comes to be a problem when you think about like, you know, X-23, right, is technically a clone of Wolverine.
Yeah. But
she's been resurrected, and like, and then there's a clone of her as well. And then like one of the big ones that it comes up on is Madeleine Pryor, who was a clone of Jean Grey. Was evil. She's the mom of Cable. She's Cable's mom.
Oh, cool.
She went crazy and evil, joined the Hellfire Club, became a villain. She was called the Goblin Queen for a while.
Very cool.
Yeah, and Alex Havoc, who they still just don't know how to do right now. But he is just like very much just like, bring her back. Why won't you bring her back? You're bringing whatever. This is you know, like, this is hypocritical. You're not going to whatever. And they refuse to bring her back. And like the five have kind of gone rogue a couple times and brought people back outside of the rules. And one of them being the other rules, they don't want any people who are precogs to be resurrected because they can figure out the secret that, you know, that Charles and Magneto know about the future of mutants. One of the big ones being Destiny. She was one of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. She was, I think, married to Mystique for a long time, too. And Mystique is very nonplussed and not happy about this. And she's like, you gotta do it. She's like, if I do this for you, you know, you have to agree to bring her back. And they just constantly rebuff her. And Inferno, she's finally kind of had enough. And she basically bribes Emma Frost and a couple other people, and like, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours situation. And they get to the five through a voting thing to resurrect what's her fuck? I forgot her name, even though it's Destiny. And needless to say, that then gets to a point where there's an open seat on the council because someone vacated it. One of the ones that were open from the people who went to join the X-Men. And through this bribing, they get Destiny on the council. And she basically tells Emma what happened. And she kind of, like, scorched earth goes after, you know, fucking lambasts Magneto and Charles about it, and like everybody knows, and it leads to essentially, like, because they were going to kill Moira then, like, we haven't seen Moira since House and Powers has been on her own little private place somewhere in Krakoa that nobody knows about, because nobody knows about her, nobody knows about this whole thing. And Charles and Magneto basically at a point just be like, yeah, you told us this and it's cool and we're going to try this, but basically it's our way or the highway now, so like either you can follow it or fuck off. And so she kind of, you know, goes off on her own, lives whatever. And of course Destiny wants to find and kill Moira. But basically what ends up happening, instead of that, or to stop that, someone, forget who it is, but they remove Moira's mutant powers. So she's no longer a mutant. So Destiny can't kill her, because it'd be killing a human. It's their workaround of it.
It's a little loophole.
So now Moira...
That's nice.
Yep, so now Moira's no longer a mutant. And they can't kill her. And everything is just kind of in disarray now, as people know about what's happened and what they know about it. And you find out there's like a reverse Days of Future Past thing that happened where a couple of... it's a sentinel human kind of hybrid-y type person who was in the X-Men comic books. Her future self kind of transports back into her past self from one of these timelines where the like robots took over and shit. And she informs a bunch of these clandestine organizations or all these global organizations about it, what happens, and they form this group called Orcus. And that includes like SHIELD and like AIM and like a bunch of organizations like that, working against the mutants in secret, essentially, because they've been told about this. So like things are going to come to a head at some point. It's already, you know, it's come to a head to a degree right now, but like the rest of this shit is going to keep going to uneasy paths. Another thing is they terraformed Mars.
Hey,
the mutants did.
That's a bonus.
Yeah, and they a digression on a digression. You find out that there was another mutant island that was once part of Krakoa. That's not anymore. And they kind of reconjoined together. It was called Araco, and it had a bunch of these other fucking mutants on it. Yeah. You can rearrange the letters of Araco to just make Krakoa again.
No, I didn't realize.
No, but they had these other mutants on there, and that's where the whole Ten of Swords thing happens.
That moment in Ten of Swords when they're at that like pre-dinner kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Wolverine just fucking ganks Saturnine.
Yeah.
Fucking dropped.
Yeah, it's great. And his
line just like, those are some nice fucking last words. Just cuts her.
They have there's a bunch of fucking swords that they all have for reasons. And there's a tournament that happens between Araco and Krakoa for dominance, whatever. But Saturnine is basically kind of pulling the strings on all the shit. But basically then they terraform Mars and rename it Araco. And so they have not only now, their own nation, but their own planet, essentially. And Storm is like the queen of Araco. She's like the leader of everything on Araco. And so it's like they're expanding into space, and it's everything with the X-Men is very gray. Beast is continually becoming more a villain, which has been kind of fun. He's less and less sympathetic and more fuck you, this is the way I want to do things, kind of not mad scientist, but why should we do this? And they're pretty much kind of going down the path of a villain almost. He's the head of Krakoa's CIA equivalent, which is X-Force. He's doing a lot of questionable things there. Again, which lends a lot of these characters are acting kind of out of character, which led a lot of people to be like, is this really them? Is this what's happening?
So nothing is there's no real conclusion to this yet?
Oh, no. And that Inferno thing that I was talking about just happened. Just wrapped up. That was Hickman's last thing before he moved on. There's the people who, since the only way they can transport things is by ship, they have the Hellfire Trading Company, which is featured in the book Marauders. The crew of the Marauders headed up by Kitty Pryde. They're basically out they do the medicine deliveries and shit, but they also
this is where we last left them. This is the final thing they're doing.
This is what they're doing currently still. There's an outpost in Britain that's Excalibur. There's the corporate side of it was in a mini series called X Corp. They're headed by Monet. So was it Monet St. Croix or something, whatever. It goes by M from Generation X. But also Warren Worthington, Angel. They kind of had the corporate side of things. So there's a whole, and of course, smartly they smatter your favorite X-Men across all these different teams. So you past X books, you don't have to buy them all, but if you want to see your favorite mutants, you're gonna have to buy every fucking book.
Right. But hold on. To get back to why these X-Men are not acting the way we all know them, to be their true selves or whatever. Mm-hmm. What is your speculation or reasoning behind you think they're acting this way? Is it Krakoa's influence that's doing this?
Potentially that was a theory because Krakoa feeds off of mutant energy.
Do we know Krakoa's history? Like, is there been like an issue about like how Krakoa started?
No, I mean, like, it's we know it was the same in that Giant Size X-Men #1. He's got him captive because he plans to suck him dry. You know what I mean? Like, that's his food. So having, and they've said it, that he will like feed like on a fraction of each mutant's energy, right? Because there's so many of them, he doesn't have to like feed off a few till they're dead, right? He just has to like, feed off some here and there. Another big player in this has come out is Doug Ramsey, who forget what his coat was. A Warlock. No, Warlock was the dude that's with him. Cypher. There we go. Cypher. And his buddy Warlock. They were the ones that helped set up everything with Krakoa, because Cypher, his mutant power is basically like understanding every language. And so he could communicate with Krakoa, which the others couldn't. And basically during Inferno, it ends up being revealed that anything that happens with Krakoa is pretty much because Doug allows it to, because him and Krakoa are tight. And he basically...
So that was a theory that Krakoa was doing this to people?
Possible. It could also, like, the other thing that people thought was Xavier just fucking with people's heads, or like maybe the Resurrection Protocol does something to them.
What if it was like something crazy like Scarlet Witch?
No, they hate her. She's called they call her like the Pretender, and like there's like nursery rhymes about how much she sucks and shit like that. Because then later it's revealed, because of the fact that they could use her and Pietro in movies, to like cut them from mutants so they didn't have to be around them. They had it revealed that they're actually not mutants and actually not Magneto's kids in the comic books.
But she did let their like
no more mutants.
No more mutants.
Yep, that all happened. But I mean, like, she's, there's a thing.
But it backfired because now they're not.
What do you mean?
Well, like she said, no more mutants, right? But there's still mutants, and there's Krakoa.
Well, no,
and
it didn't
like
kill. It didn't. The no more mutants didn't take out all mutants. I think there was like there was 198 left afterwards. And then now with the Crucible thing, there was the people who don't have their powers could do that whole shit to get their powers back. So there's more back, and then she tried to resurrect the mutants of Genosha, I think, but that went horribly wrong. She was trying to make amends, and it went horribly wrong, and they kind of came back all zombified. She's tried to make amends with the mutants, but it hasn't worked. And recently there's during the Hellfire Gala was like a mini event thing, where it was this party where the mutants invited a bunch of world dignitaries and the Avengers and Fantastic Four or whatever, all to Krakoa, and a bunch of behind the scenes shit happening and political things and whatever, and it ends, and who's there but fucking Scarlet Witch is there too, and
what are their thoughts on like the Fantastic Four, since they're basically mutated by like a gamma ray?
They're not natural mutants though, right?
I know, but what
mutants. Their son is.
What do the mutants, the real mutants, think of them? Because they have like a mutant type like power to them.
They're not mutants though.
They're not, but they have mutant type powers.
Well, but there's a lot of people on Earth that have powers that aren't mutants, right? They're created by some sort of other thing. Mutants are naturally mutants, right? So like anybody who has powers, they're not regarded in any certain way just because they're just, if they're mutants or not, but their son, Reed Sue's son, is a mutant. And there's a series called X Men Fantastic Four, a mini series, where the X-Men come and be like, hey, fucking, hey boy, you wanna come with us? You can come with us. Reed and Sue get really pissed. They're just like, this is our kid. Can't just be like, hey, fucking whatever. And they're like, no, we can. He's a mutant. He's welcome. And it gets real tense. And like, something happens, whether, I forget the exact explanation, but something about his powers. He uses his powers to an extent where they start to kind of wane. And like, whether it's, because he's got these big, like, he's an Omega level mutant. Like, he can create universes and shit. Like, it's crazy. But, like, because of the usage of his powers, they've been waning and getting less and less. And essentially, at a point, then, he stopped registering as a mutant. Through Cerebro and the Krakoan gates and shit. And then they're just like, alright, you're not a mutant, peace out. And then, like, Reed and Sue are just like, Are you fucking serious? You're all ready to take our boy. And he was all ready to go. And fucking, even though we didn't want him to, he was excited because this is like where he belongs. And then now you just throw him out because he doesn't register. Like, so it's tensions are high with other superhero groups.
Sounds like it.
Scarlet Witch is at the Hellfire Gala. There's a scene you see of her talking with Magneto, and he seems to be like, you know, asking for forgiveness and just like, you know, Wanda, I'm sorry, even though we find out you're not technically my daughter or whatever, you still, you know, still feels like we have this family bond, and I feel bad about all this stuff that happens. And then like all of a sudden, then like the end of the issue, you discover Scarlet Witch's body. She's dead. And it was like, what the fuck? And then this whole series that's not that great, called Trial of Magneto, kicks off. They call it Trial of Magneto, even though within like the first couple issues, it's like, oh yeah, Magneto didn't do this. But it's trying to figure out, you know, who killed her and what happened. And you come to find out eventually that it was Toad that did it.
Oh, good old Toad.
Yeah, because he feels some type of way because of their history with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and all this shit. But in the process, again, this is another one of those like, she gets resurrected.
Okay.
And her memories though are from like an earlier version, because that's the version that's stored on Cerebro, you know. So, like, the version of her that gets resurrected doesn't remember all the No More Mutants shit, all the whatever. But, I think Jean or somebody brings her up to date, essentially, through, like, a mental download, you know? But, so we get this, like, so she's back, seemingly more powerful, and, like...
without all that excess baggage.
But she still has it because she knows it. Like they do dump it on her, but
they back her up from a previous save state, but then they catch her up and everything.
But that save state is from a long time ago, right? Yeah. So it's so like so that's all weird too. She's somehow, because during all this she has like some weird powwow with like past her and like future her in this like kind of ethereal weird zone. And she comes back all like stronger than ever, and just, it's weird. I don't know how to describe it.
She seems really OP.
But she's got reality altering powers, you know.
That's why I was saying, like, because I'm getting into like where I think the expanded universe now is for the films.
Well, yeah, we saw that with WandaVision, right?
Well, we talked about that. Like she did it on a small scale, right? She did a bubble around her own, like
a town,
town. But now she has like the Darkhold and things like that. So she's like expanding her mind more. She could eventually do a bubble around a universe and make her own universe and have everything she wants to be in that. And then the X Men could live in that universe. She's like, instead of no more
Franklin
mutants,
Richards can do that too.
Instead of no more, she says, "Let there be," because she wants her kids, and she wants her kids to live in the universe.
She tried that on Genosha with resurrecting. I mean, it didn't work. But like I'm
not saying like it worked in it didn't work in the comics, but it could somehow work its way through into the films.
Right, that would have been a boon to fucking have Franklin Richards if his powers were at full, because he has and can and has created a whole universe before too. It was the whole Heroes Reborn thing in the 90s was a universe of his making. But like that, you have to have like, she's not like Franklin Richards level. She can alter a lot of reality stuff, but like at this point, I don't think she did though. There's a mini series called based on the Darkhold that just happened, where she basically at the end ends up absorbing the power of the Darkhold. So she is stupid powerful right now. But yeah,
because there has to be some kind of conflict that happens around. Well, we saw it at the end of that Spider-Man with the Doctor Strange little after credits.
She is in Multiverse of Madness, right? And she could end up being an antagonistic role in that at some point.
Yeah, that's what my head's kind of spinning, where they could go with that idea of like, who's gonna be the analog to all these people that we've known from the Avengers saga, all of them. Like, who is gonna eventually take up the mantle of the archetype of Tony Stark? Who's gonna be the archetype? Who are we gonna follow, and who's gonna make that sacrifice at the end of this next phase? Like, who's gonna make the big choice at the end? Like, I'll do it. I'll sacrifice myself.
There's been a lot of like leaks of Multiverse of Madness stuff, rumors, including the Illuminati is going to be in there, but it's like a multiversal Illuminati, and you have like Xavier's there, like the X movies version of Xavier is there. A Reed Richards of some sort.
That's what I'm thinking is going to take up the mantle, is Reed. He's going to be the fucking Stark archetype.
Tom Cruise, Tony Stark. And like, because he originally was the one they wanted for Iron Man, right?
Really?
But he didn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. And there's even now a shot, a leak shot purported to be from Multiverse of Madness, of them like shooting, that shows Tom Cruise. He's got longer hair, and he's got like a Tony Stark style like goatee looking thing, and he's got a mocap suit on.
Oh no!
So like,
holy cow!
So, and then like that's how Toby is apparently coming back again, for it.
So like, in Toby's universe, Tom Cruise is the Iron Man then?
Well, no, not necessarily. It's just he's one of the universes that pops out, right? And then like pops in again, and like the X Men, there's rumors that Hugh Jackman's gonna pop up for it for a minute. Like all these different multiversal versions of it's gonna be like take fucking No Way Home, but put it on the level of that final battle of Endgame, essentially.
Yeah. Yep.
That's basically what Multiverse of Madness is gonna be. So it's gonna be insane.
That's what I hope. If they call it Multiverse of Madness, you got to expect like, this is just insane. Like, how are they doing this? Why is this guy here now? Like, they should open up gaps of like, there's a blonde
versions.
There's a blonde version of Doctor Strange, or there's like, there's
already potentially 3 versions of Strange that we know of.
There's a big Iron Man.
Strange. There's regular Strange. There's bad Strange, and then there's a toy leak. For like they call it the Defenders Strange, which is Doctor Strange. Like it's not clear that it's a multiversal version. It could be our version, but it's different. It's pretty different. Like, he's wearing a costume based off of a costume that he wore in the comics of the series Defenders. It's like black and red and it looks really fucking cool. But he's also got like long hair that's in like a ponytail and big and then like traditionally Strange has these big white streaks in his hair on either side of his head, and he's got those in it. So that's potentially a third version of Strange we're getting. There's also a rumor that fucking old Eddie Norton might come back.
Wow.
As well. Like, yeah, like
Eric
they're
Bana,
talking like
maybe?
that would be insane. But pulling from like all of like Marvel movie history essentially.
And then we have a version of Human Torch with Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, dude, that would be hilarious.
Because he's not being Captain
America. Because there was the rumor that you would see the what's his fuck version of Reed from the
old one
from the 2000s.
Oh, that
Fantastic
one.
Four.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. There's also a rumor that like, because it's also like the wink and a nudge type things too, like at like rumors and like past things, hence the Tom Cruise thing. It's like, hey, this was what we planned on, but it never worked, but we're gonna get him for this little bit. Another rumor is that they're gonna have John Krasinski show up for a little bit as a multiversal Mr. Fantastic, because that's, you know, a fan casting thing that a lot of people have wanted.
Why? I've never understood.
What do you mean why?
I just don't understand fan casting.
John Krasinski is Mr. Fantastic. That'd be great. But like have him pop up for a little bit.
Well, to each his own.
And, like not all of them having a super substantial time, but like having them just at least versions pop up, right? Like a different multiverse version of the Avengers pop up, and like it's like all different shit that's gonna, you know, coalesce in this.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need. I think it kind of doesn't matter who they cast for the new Fantastic Four.
No. Yeah, it doesn't. Continue. Sorry.
I think the most important thing is them actually like successfully portraying the idea of these people being a family and them being like an important kind of fixture in the Marvel universe.
Right.
Like, I think the story needs to be more about like, oh, in the beginning, Reed is just like super fucking. He's like the Reed that we normally see, where he's got something in his head and he can't get it out, and he's so super obsessed and so like driven that he ignores the people around him and takes them for granted.
Well, yeah, he's like the highest level IQ in like all of Marvel comics.
Yeah, and like that leads to them getting
Moon Girl.
Okay,
you know, blasted by the cosmic rays, and he feels bad about Ben, but still like gets focused on like, how do I fix this? And over time in the movie learns to like open up to the people around him, create human connections, and get really close to them. And that's when they start learning to use their powers together and overcoming this stuff. And
right.
But you've got to have that like progression. It can't just be like, hey, we're all kind of jokey somewhat throughout the movie together. There's no real like change in our group dynamic. Because more than anybody, the Fantastic Four is a group of people as a single unit. It's not the Avengers. It's not the X Men. It's four fucking people who very rarely are they apart from each other. Very rarely, like they operate together. They talk to each other about what they're doing. They fight. They like, you know.
They are literally a family and everything.
Yeah, you got to see that.
Yeah. And the thing I was saying with John Krasinski too, it's not them being like he's going to be our Mr. Fantastic. It's just like a little wink and a nod to like a rumor.
To just the rumor, like fans.
Yeah,
for some
because
reason like that idea.
Knowing Marvel and how they do it, they tend to go with relatively unknowns for their casting. You know, like.
Well, because I mean, John, he's probably a big bankable actor, so he'd probably want to like.
Yeah.
Stretch his acting muscles out and do other things, and you're kind of tied down to like this long contract of like, all right, you're going to be a part of this movie's franchise for this foreseeable future, and you can't do other movies. This one will be your main one, so you have to make a commitment to do these films. So They get kind of lower level kind of actors to do that.
Outside of a few, career, though. Right?
Because he's got a wife and kids, and he's like, "All right, I'll sign up for like a steady paycheck for a few, like for 10 years."
Like RDJ, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because outside of a few people, you know, the people that they cast as their as the heroes are relatively unknowns, right? Relatively unknown to not super huge and popular. Like, we forget at the time when RDJ was cast, he was not a big star anymore. You know what I mean? He was like, you know, he is just bouncing back from his, you know, last, you know, rehab stint, essentially.
Nor was Iron Man a like household name by any means.
No. That Chris Evans, like, you knew him from things, but he wasn't a huge star. Nobody knew who the fuck Chris Hemsworth was. Fucking Chadwick Boseman, like all these people, like Chris Pratt, like you just knew him from fucking, you know, from Parks and Rec, like that. Like nobody's a huge star that's in these movies, so they tend not to go for like household names. So that whenever X Men and Fantastic Four, apparently through the grapevine, Fantastic Four started casting now. But like for those things, they're not going to be super well-known people that are going to be playing these characters, essentially. You know,
I'm down for whatever. I'm down to see some good, you know, character development films, and not just Johnny Storm doing wiseacres, you know.
I was gonna say you're looking at the wrong franchise for character development, but I mean, there's some.
Well, like, just to reiterate what Wilson was saying,
but not a lot.
Just to echo what Wilson was saying about, it's not just snarky comebacks and one-liners coming from Johnny Storm. No. You know, it's like you gotta see how he's like he wants to be a helpful partner to this group. You know, he's
And Ben Grimm is not just, oh, I am sad rock man. Like,
you can't just boil it down to that.
Thing, my dude.
Some of the best parts about these characters is not what makes them a superhero; it's what makes them a person. And the thing that I love the most
about, it's not the caricature, it's not them. It's the you know.
One of the things that I love absolutely the most about Ben Grimm, his like interest and his respect for the place that he lives, like Yancey Street, him being all about like, I want to protect the hood, I want to protect the people I grew up with, like I want to make sure that I'm able to. I'm a big rock dude who is, it's hard to hurt me and I can punch real good, but I want to do what I can to give back to the people that live around me and not just like save the world from giant dragons. I want to make sure that people are good.
And his undying like loyalty to Reed, and like his brotherly relationship with Johnny. Like there's his, like eventually when you get further down the line, when Reed and Sue have kids, the Uncle Ben, like you know, like aspect of him where he's, you know, like it's a family, right? And they take care of each other like family. And so much of the I guess the nuance of Ben Grimm is just he is clobber in time, crack some jokes, be sad, but like he's also, you know, loyal and loving and like takes care of those around him essentially.
And he's smart too. He's not a
dummy. He's not the smartest man in the world, but he's no dummy.
No.
Next to Reed, he looks like a dummy, but he's not a dummy.
Next to Reed, anybody looks like a dummy.
Everybody looks like a dummy. Yeah.
Does your future, you know, lineage invent universes? No.
Oh. But yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see. Like this is this is a period in the MCU where it is trying to both maintain and also, like, we're throwing shit at the wall and seeing what happens and what we can...
Like Eternals, right? They just threw that at the wall and like, hey, let's see if this works. Nope.
No.
Can I throw out my idea for what I would like to see out of the next Spider-Man movie? I think that where they left Peter Parker, they put him in a perfect place to make a street-level movie.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have the tech. He doesn't have backup. Literally nobody in the world knows him. He's got a cloth suit.
Yep.
They've established that both Daredevil and Kingpin exist in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have him just be out fighting crime in the streets of New York City, stopping muggers, helping old ladies, like doing what he can to help out his city.
Mugger.
Maybe he comes across some shenanigans of Kingpin's men, gets caught up with Daredevil.
Yep.
They have a little street level team up, and the big bad guy is just Wilson Fisk, or maybe he's hired like Hammerhead or some
Tombstone.
Maybe that's a perfect way for Mac Gargan to come back, and Scorpion. We get a little appearance of Scorpion. They both fight the Scorpion. Fisk gets arrested. Peter makes some connections, and like maybe during the movie he starts working at the Daily, the Daily Planet, the Daily Bugle. Maybe like they establish a few more of these like Spider-Man things. Maybe Black Cat shows up for a second. I don't know, but make it keep it street level. Have only like one other hero show up who has really just somebody like Daredevil, or maybe I don't somebody who doesn't really have superpowers,
right?
Or maybe to the same degree that Spider-Man does, just like a couple enhancements here and there.
And that's always been the great thing about Spider-Man, was that he was always, straddling the line between friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and Avenger, right? So he's got these connections to the big heroes like Fantastic Four, but he also has a lot of connections with your street level guys like Daredevil and Iron Fist and Luke Cage and all these guys, Punisher, like all this shit. He has all these connections to as well. So he's a good way to bridge the gap there too. And there is now a lot of reports of Charlie Cox, Daredevil, being a larger presence that's going to be there throughout TV shows. Like, he's going to pop up in Echo, which makes sense because she's from Daredevil originally in the comic books. He's going to pop up in She-Hulk, right? Which
we talked
makes
about
sense because he's a lawyer. Like, he's going to pop up in all these things and building a stronger presence in both TV and movies.
He's gonna wave hello at Moon Knight. He's just gonna say hi. Hi, Moon Knight. I love you, Moon Knight.
Like, all these things where he can and probably will pop up in, which makes perfect sense. So he's going to be building his presence there. And and Spidey, there's a thing, a bit of an article or something I read where it was like, took them 5 movies or whatever the fuck, or 6 movies, and they've finally to put Spider-Man where he was should be, to be where he started, like what he is, like your no fuss, no muss, street level, neighborhood, Spidey boy.
Hopefully it's that simple for somebody at Marvel who's in charge of making these decisions of what script goes forward, because they've done the big stories, they've told the big grandiose Spider-Man saving the world, Spider-Man Homecoming was still pretty street level, but you had Iron Man there, you had a suit that was basically just an Iron Man suit, He had people that he could call for backup. He had resources. Now he's got nothing.
But yeah, that's an awesome way to kind of surmise that whole series. Is basically he was given all this stuff to become a great superhero, but he didn't get to the point of what it means to be a hero until May told him in the final movie that with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, he like separately had to learn all of these lessons in each of these movies to culminate to where like
the climax of that movie
happened.
To where the end of that movie is just the perfect send off to like, all right, you've learned everything you needed to learn from these past movies and these histories with the Avengers and things like that. Go off and do your own thing. Become great in your own right. With your own.
Now you know what you need to do.
Yeah, with your own stuff, your own knowledge.
Now you know who you are. You've been through the shit. You like don't have to worry about your crush on girls. You don't have to worry about high school. You don't have to worry about keeping your secret identity. Like, I mean, I guess until you start making connections, that is, but like you can just do your thing and you've already figured everything out. You are here. Now you can go on and learn like completely brand new lessons.
It's kind of a nice tricksy roundabout way for Marvel to like one of the things that Marvel has tried to do as much as possible is step away from the origin film. You know what I mean? Like you still have to do it to a degree, but like Spidey was one of those things. Where
but they almost did the origin film in reverse, if you think about it. Like
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Is that like
they did their own fun spin on it.
So like, oh, he's already established. It's Spider-Man. We can plug him in now. And then once they get him in there and whatever, it's like, okay, now it's like, now what do we do with Spider-Man? Like he's established. He's gone through all this. He's saved the world multiple times. He's dealt with all this like, interdimensional shit. And what do we do? And they're like, well, how about we just take him back to, an era or a style that we haven't explored in this universe, which is just him on his own, fucking
dealing with
doing shit on the streets,
day-to-day issues. Going to school, balancing everything, a job, school.
So back to basics with skipping the basics, right?
Yeah, just do
our chance to do. Yep, it's their chance to go back and do that type of Spider-Man story, and it was just like, we've taken him as far as we could, so let's just strip it all away, and then bring him back to fucking basics, just him on his own.
Well, I appreciate you talking about comic books with me, Eric.
I do too. It's fun. I appreciate you bringing it up.
I could delve into some Blackest Night, Brightest Day shit, but I'll save that for another time.
Well, that's a whole other.
Oh boy,
that's a weeks long conversation right there.
I know what grave I'm digging there.
Mm-hmm. Fuck, dude.
Hey, Eric.
What?
What do you call a medical device that helps somebody walk for somebody who is rather high up in an organized religion? You call it you call it a saint walker.
As soon as he started saying it, my brain clicked. I was like, "Oh, you bastard!"